Hello, welcome back.
Sorry, to another installment of GoFigglo's rocket jumping tutorial class lesson experience. In this episode, we'll go over sync jumps in Jurf and tackle their courses in the Easy Mixed course on Jump Academy 2. In general, the topics covered in these courses, and by extension this video, are less useful in the actual game of TF2. Sync jumps can be useful in some situations, like suicide bombing the cart and payload.
I do not see a cart moving, ladies.
NANI?
Each and every one of you will be sent home to your mama in a...
But achieving proficiency in these skills helps tremendously when playing casual or
Other game modes.
by making you more familiar with the controls and movement mechanics. That being said, since we covered the basics already in the last video, which you should watch if you haven't yet, we can go ahead and get right into the sync jumps. Sync jumps are definitely one of my favorite TF2 mechanics. The feeling of hitting a difficult sync is just
Beautiful.
Sync jumps can take a while to fully understand, so I'm going to assist and try to remedy any issues you guys might be having. Sync jumps are the appropriately given name to doing a rocket jump with more than one rocket, which is performed by syncing the rockets together. Most of the time, and especially for beginner to intermediate maps, this is done by falling off a platform, shooting at some point before you hit the ground, and then doing a normal rocket jump once you land to use the boost from both rockets in one jump. Now there are a lot of different types of sync jumps, such as doubles, triples, quads, quints, ramp syncs, wall syncs, telesyncs, and even a few septuple sync jumps you might eventually encounter. Notice the names are just how many rockets in total that you use. Each one is just timing your shots to make sure all of the rockets hit at the same time, allowing you to get a lot of speed and height from them. This is all a sync jump is in principle, but in practice they can feel weird and inconsistent. For right now, let's focus on doing a purely vertical sync, where we just walk off, shoot, fly. But first, here's some numbers and conceptual information for you. Feel free to skip to this time if you don't care about the numbers and are watching this while stuck on a sync jump and just really want me to get to the point. Anyways, in TF2, distance measurements are made using the hammer unit. 16 hammer units equate to 1 foot for scale. The rockets you shoot travel linearly at just about 1100 hammer units per second. There is no gravity, and there is no deviation from the exact line created when you first shot. In order for a player to perform a sync, and this is true for all sync jumps, you must have some way of traveling more than 1100 hammer units per second, in order to be in front of the rocket by the time it impacts whatever you shot it at. So, gravity is a great way to do that. Gravity in TF2 accelerates the player at 800 hammer units per second, meaning we only need to fall for about 1.5 seconds to get past our rocket. Jumps that intend for you to do a sync set you up for this speed intentionally. For purely vertical syncs, aiming straight down is good, but since most of the time we walk off the platform and therefore have some speed moving forward, you want to either aim your rocket in the air in front of yourself a bit so it lands where you land, or hit S to try to remain still while falling. Being able to aim where you're going to land is a big part of rocket jumping, and predicting that quickly is one of the key skills you need to improve at sync jumps. Syncs are often done while moving, such as when you're chaining syncs together, so making sure you aim where you're going to land is extremely important. With that in mind, let's look at some examples of double syncs gone wrong. I'm going to call the first rocket, the one you shoot in the air, rocket number 1, and the second one, the one you shoot on the ground, rocket number 2. In this clip, rocket number 1 was fired too early. It speeds past you and hits the ground before you can catch up to it at all. If you can see the rocket hit the ground before you, try waiting a bit after jumping off the platform and let yourself fall longer before shooting. In this clip, rocket number 1 was fired too late. This means it hits the ground after you do, which is good, but also in the firing cooldown window of your launcher, making it impossible to sink both rockets. If your rocket number 1 is bouncing you around before you can shoot again, try shooting a bit earlier in the air. Now we get to arguably the most difficult part of learning sinks. When do we fire rocket number 2? This is a tricky question, as most sink jumps have varying heights which affect the amount of time until rocket number 1 hits the ground. There are two methods for timing sinks, looking back and doing it based on feel. Looking back or up at your rocket number 1 in the air is a great strategy for most sinks, but mainly you want to use it when the distance you fall is great enough to give you some time at the bottom before your first rocket lands. This allows you to look back and gauge when your rocket number 1 will land, then look back down to shoot your rocket number 2. I do caution against looking back 100% of the time, because a lot of sinks are pretty tight, meaning you're going to be shooting your rocket number 2 right as you land or very soon after, in which case looking back is going to mess you up because there's not enough time. Looking back is definitely required for other sinks like triples and quints, however, because you're usually given a lot of falling distance and a comfortable amount of time to look back at the bottom. Let's look at some common issues for timing rocket number 2 now, with rocket number 1 being shot correctly. In this clip, I panic and shoot rocket number 2 and jump too early. You can easily diagnose this in this situation because sometimes you'll get what looks like a good sink, but you just don't get the required height or distance for the jump. This indicates your timing is off, most likely your rocket number 2 timing, but again, it could be your rocket number 1 was arriving too early and not letting you get the full blast force from your rocket number 2. This clip is what happens if your rocket number 2 is too late. You suddenly get a big fat red damage indicator because you were standing on the ground when your rocket number 1 hit. Similar to how you get a lot less knockback from your rocket shooting it straight at the floor and not doing a rocket jump. Alright, that was double sinks. Alright, so that was double sinks. Now let's quickly go over a triple sink since the last jump of Easy Sink on Jump Academy 2 is a triple. Triples can seem very intimidating, and this is where a solid foundation in doubles can help immensely. A triple sink is basically just a double where you fire your rocket number 1 early, so that you can fire another rocket as you're passing through it. 2 rockets in the air, third one on the ground. For consistency's sake, I recommend changing these settings to reduce the delay your game automatically applies by default to your view of the server. Just copy and paste these commands from the description into your console. I'm not even going to pretend like I know what all of these do, but the most important one is CL_interp. Lowering this to its lowest value will reduce the visual lag and make it easier to time your sinks. With all that being said, let's look at a run of the Easy Sink course on Jump Academy 2. Try to notice how long I wait to shoot my rocket number 1 and how long I wait to shoot my rocket number 2. Okay, we've worked our way up the ranks of the Easy Jump Academy courses. You feel comfortable strafing, doing wall shots, pogoing, and even sinking. What could be more challenging than those? What new, harder technique is left to learn? Have we finally reached the barren, desolate summit of rocket jumping? What more could this adventure possibly offer us? What could possibly satisfy my burning lust for TF2 jumping? No! 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 Make it stop! Fine. Let's talk about Jurf. In TF2 and other Source Engine games, you're able to slide horizontally on ramp surfaces for some reason. This sliding in other Source games is referred to as surfing. In the TF2 jumping world, it's called Jurf. In order to slide on a Jurf ramp, you just need to land on it looking forward and hold the movement key that is perpendicular to your viewing direction and that points into the ramp. That's pretty much it. You can also do one of these little maneuvers to sacrifice some gravitational potential energy and convert it into speed, and you can usually shoot off of Jurf ramps to gain massive amounts of speed. One important technique in Jurf is looking into the ramp, converting your horizontal momentum into upwards momentum in order to launch off the ramp with speed and height. However, this can only really be done when you use a rocket to start moving upwards or are already moving really fast. Another essential Jurf mechanic, and one that's used for curved ramps, is to hold the opposite strafe key. If you're going fast enough, you'll fly off a curved ramp if you hold the strafe key that points into the ramp. But if you hold the opposite one and kind of treat it like you're strafing in the air, it'll keep you on the ramp and maintain your speed. You also have to aim a little bit differently than with normal Jurf, more into the ramp. This is a great way to control how much height you get off of a curved ramp when you're going really fast. Don't tell any of my jumper friends, but I think Jurf is actually really fun when a map uses it tastefully. Anyways, I don't think I've ever encountered someone struggling on the easy Jurf course, but let me run through it just in case for you. Next up is Easy Mix, so get excited.
We have commandeered my point.
Alright, so that was Jurf. Now it's time for Easy Mix, the last course before you're ready to take on some harder jumps. Easy Mix doesn't really have any new techniques you aren't already familiar with, it just sort of combines the skills you've acquired from the other courses. I do want to recommend really practicing the easy courses before you start the medium ones. The medium courses are a serious step up in difficulty, so don't be discouraged if you beat Easy Mix for the first time and immediately get hard stopped on medium walls. My advice is don't just be able to complete the easy courses, be able to complete them well with little to no struggle. Then, with that foundation, you'll be ready for the medium courses. I'm just going to put a run of Easy Mix now with some on-screen tips for each jump. Mainly just things I find helpful to keep in mind when playing through the course myself. Enjoy. Wow, it only took me an entire 13 months to make a sequel to the first rocket jumping video. I hope it was worth the wait. As always, any feedback on the video's information and format is appreciated, as are any jumping tips you might want new players to see in the comments. I'm going to change up the format for the medium courses to try to knock all of them out in one video, but don't expect anything soon. Thank you for watching, and I hope this video was able to help you.